I am Carla Holt. I'm joined once again by Larry Jacobs with the University of Minnesota. We've been so grateful for his perspective the last couple of hours, as well as the one and only senior reporter here, political reporter John Croman, covered so many campaigns and elections. So we're grateful for his perspective as well. And I just pulled up the Washington Post website, because that was, again, the place where I learned who the winner was. It was then Trump triumphs. Now they've changed the headline to a Trump comeback. Again, obviously looking at the arc of this particular candidate. We saw him in 2016, we saw him in 2020, different results, and again now 2024. What do we think? I mean, here's my question as we capitalize in these last minutes with Larry Jacob. What really allowed him to take control in those swing states where we expected it was going to come down to the wire? And again, it kind of speaks to, I don't think many of us thought we would have results this early, that we'd be discussing who the president-elect would be this early on Wednesday morning. What do you guys think happened there?
Well, the question is it the strength of Trump as a candidate, or is the weakness of Harris being too tied to Biden and Biden's baggage, right?
Yeah, that's the way I would put it too. I mean, if you look at the electorate's not one thing, it's chunked.
Yeah.
And, several chunks are the parties. And that's, well over 80% of the electorate. And, whatever people tell you about, I vote the candidate, this is nonsense today. Almost every single one of those people in either party votes for their party's candidate. So Donald Trump starts with, 42% of the electorate that's locked in on him because he's the Republican.
Right.
Then you get into other groups. And I think in this election, when you had voters responding to the costs of inflation as it was locked in, a dozen eggs when Joe Biden came into office was, $2 something. And now it's $4 or $5. And if you get the kind of expensive organic eggs that John gets.
I was going to say free range. Holy moly. You go with the free range where the hens get to run around, then you're really paid on the top dollar.
Those are what, $6?
Yeah,
at
least.
Would know better.
I just bought a carton. I was like, I really love animals, and so I decided it was worth every penny. But go ahead.
No, whatever my wife tells me, she says, get the brown ones, the free range or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like,
well, those
I'm not in charge of that decision.
Those costs are baked in. And even though, we can look at charts and say, the rate inflation is down. The reality is for most Americans, or many Americans, they're hurting. They've got to make choices now because their paycheck doesn't go as far. And those voters decidedly voted for Donald Trump. And so an election that it was a toss-up, the 7% or so who were undecided, they broke overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. And that's why I think John's right. Was this really about Donald Trump? Clearly the flawed candidate who, just 6 months ago or 7 months ago, we were wondering, was he going to spend time in jail?
Right.
Now he's elected president because I think people were responding party, and then they were rejecting the incumbent administration because things had gotten worse.
Yeah, and the question then for Democrats becomes, do you need to do a better job of explaining what happened? Do you need to talk about supply chain and all of that? Or is that just a wasted effort? Are people just going to vote their pocketbook and say, I'm worse off than I was? I mean, I remember in 1980 when Reagan, said, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" And I had a friend older than me who said, "Yeah, that's why I voted for Reagan." I'm like, "Yeah, but you live in a better house now. You have a better job. You drive a nicer car than you did 4 years ago. You are better off." And he goes, "Just doesn't feel that way."